In this presentation, we're going to enter another purchase order, this time adding a new inventory item and a new vendor as we enter the purchase order. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Online. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars file. First, going to jump on over to our flowchart. Once again, we're going to be entering another purchase order. So here's going to be the purchase order. There's no actual financial transaction. We're requesting inventory. We're requesting a guitar in this case, but we don't have it and we're not paying for it yet until we get it. Therefore, just a purchase order. To do that, we're going to select the plus button up top. Then we're going to go to the Money Out section and then to the Send Purchase Order. So we send purchase order. Next, we're going to go up to the vendors up top and we're going to add a new vendor. So we want Gibson. If I select the drop down, I don't see Gibson here. So, and I could start typing it in, Gibson, and see if it populates. It does not. So we're going to add Gibson. We're going to add Gibson a new vendor as we make the purchase order. So if I say tab or if I hit this little plus item down below, then we have our new vendor. This is who we're going to be purchasing from. We're purchasing from vendor. We're going to purchase a guitar from vendor. I'm not going to put all the detailed information in there. We're just going to keep the name for now. If we're talking about large vendors, however, we probably do want as much detailed information as we would, unlike if we had a phone company vendor or something like that, where we probably only care about the name in our QuickBooks file. But in any case, we're going to go ahead and say save. Now, typically at this point, we can often send the purchase order with an email, in which case we would have the email here. Then we have the mailing address. We didn't put a mailing address in. The ship to, if we had to ship the information, we'd have the ship to address here. We're going to just put the date at this point in time, the date being 01/12/20. So January 12th, 2020. Then if we scroll down to the information, we've got the category information and we have the item information. We're going to be dealing with items, of course, because we're going to be dealing with inventory items. So we're going to be setting up an inventory item. Now, this is a new vendor. We haven't purchased from this vendor before. Therefore, the items related to them are most likely going to be new as well. So remember that the items are the things that we had to set up, the actual guitars that we basically set up, that we will need to set up in order to populate the invoices. Now we're going to have to set them up here to populate the purchase order as well as the invoices that we will later have. So we're going to say this is a GSB. The product name is going to be GSB. I'm going to say tab, and we're going to then set this up. We're going to say it's going to be an inventory item because we do want to track the inventory for it. Then we have the same screen that we saw when we entered an inventory item or take a look at the inventory items in the item list. So we've got the SKU. I'm going to put the category. We're not going to have a category. Initial quantity on hand. We don't need to put this in place because we don't have any on hand at this point. So this is the first purchase order we're going to have of it. We typically won't have the initial quantity on hand except for when you first start the company file. Then you probably want to leave that item alone after that point in time. So then we have the inventory asset account. It's going to be going to the inventory asset. That's the account we want it to go to when we buy the inventory. So when we put the inventory on the books, we want it to go there. We're going to say the description is going to be a Gibson SG. That's going to be the kind of guitar that we're going to have that we want to populate in the description. We're going to say that the sales price, this is what we sell it for, not what we're buying it for here. We're going to say we're going to purchase it, we're going to sell it for $777.40. The sales of product income, so the income account that it's going to be going to when we make a sales receipt or purchase order is going to the correct account. It's going to the sale of the product. That's what we want. We made our service items go into the sales up top and our inventory items to go to the sale of product. It's going to be taxable, so we do want to have the taxable item down below. Then we're going to have the purchase information, which I'm going to put the same as the description, is going to be the Gibson SG. And then we're going to say the cost. This is what we're going to buy it for. Again, we're not buying it yet with the purchase order, but when we get the bill, we expect to pay the $598. So that's going to be our cost of goods sold, which will populate on the bill when we actually, or the check that we write when we do finally pay for the inventory after we receive the inventory. And it'll populate, it'll be what's used when we create an invoice or a sales receipt when we sell it. It won't show on the invoice or sales receipt, but it will be used on the invoice and sales receipt to lower inventory and record the related cost of goods sold. And then we have the preferred vendor. This is who we buy it from. And this is going to be Gibson. So we're going to say it's Gibson. We can populate that in this format. So there is that. And so everything looks good. Let's check it one more time. So we're going to say, all right, looks good. And I'm going to say save and close. And they're saying the initial quantity on hand is a required field. So the initial quantity, we're going to say is 0 then. 0 quantity on hand. As of date, I'm going to say at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to say January 1st, 2020. So we're going to start with 0. We're counting up from this point because we're going to make our first purchase order related to this new piece of inventory that we've never had before. Let's try it again. I'm going to say save and close. So there we have that. And it's populated for us now. So we have a quantity. We're going to have one of these. We're going to buy it for the $5.98. Remember, that's not what we're selling it for. That's what we expect to buy it for. And we're not buying it yet. We're requesting it. We expect that to be on the bill once we receive the unit. And that's when we'll buy it or purchase it or put it on the books with a bill or a check at that point in time. Then we can assign the customer as we did last time. You don't always assign the customer to the purchase order because we might be buying it just to put it in the store. But in this case, we're going to say once again that we had a specific customer asking for this guitar. And we said, okay, we can purchase that guitar specifically for you. The purchase order to Gibson doesn't really care. Gibson, the vendor, doesn't care about our customer. They just make a sale. They're going to give us the guitar. We care, however, because we want to be able to link or tie out the purchase order and know that when we receive this purchase order, then we have to turn around and create a sales receipt or an invoice to sell this guitar to the customer who had requested it, which is the reason we made the purchase order. So we're going to say the customer then that we're going to link here is going to be Music Stuff Store. Very catchy name. And that's going to be a customer. We don't have that customer yet, so we're going to set this up. We're going to set this up at this time. So I'm going to say tab, and I'm going to set up the customer. Again, we probably would want the details if we could get them in our system. Telephone number, email. We would like to send you our newsletter if you don't mind. We think it'd be a very beneficial thing to have that and so on. But we're not going to do it in the practice problem. We're going to say save, and there we have that. So then again, if we scroll down to the bottom, we can have other messages, memos, attachments. We can print this. We can make it a reoccurring item. We could save it. And then we have our options to save and close, or save and make a new one if we so choose, or save and send. That would typically try to send it to the email address. So we would need an email address if we were going to do that. Or we can basically print it and email it or send it in some other fashion. So what we're going to do for our problem is going to say save and close. So we're going to say save and close.